my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Time to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where once a month we dissect the month's events in geek and give you our thoughts, our ups and downs, and everything in between. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody is having an awesome evening or day whenever you're listening to this. We're very happy to have you. And I'll go into my month of August in a second, but joining me today is, of course, Alex the Shadow Blazer, who is joining me from Parts Unknown, which I'm guessing is only just another light dimension that he occupies whenever he can't occupy his apartment in the void. Alex, how has the month of August treated you?
Well, everything was okay, pretty well. Had a nice vacation, and well, it is pretty funny, and I'm sure you'll mention this too. While everybody in the family got sick, including yourself, including your wife, including your kids, I was the lucky one, and I escaped the
Yeah, how the fuck did that happen?
I have no idea.
Because the offending person who was sick spent more time with you than anyone else.
No, it's like the part in the original Sonic the Hedgehog movie where he says, "How are you not dead?" And Sonic says, "I have no idea."
Yeah,
that's me.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. Like the offending daughter who actually brought the cold with us spent more time in the day with Alex than anybody else, and Alex is the only one that didn't get sick. I don't even know how that happened.
Built up an immunity, I guess.
I guess maybe she just touched your hand and said, "You are clean. I will allow you to be clean."
Also to add to, but I had my own woes once we got back because, once we got back, my hard drive decided to kick out and completely crash on me and stopped functioning properly.
Your internal one?
Yeah, I was afraid it was going to happen soon because I had noticed a bunch of errors on it before when I ran like a check. I was hoping some disk repairs kind of stayed that off. It probably did for a little while, but it just decided the Sunday we got back actually to finally conk out. So had to find an emergency repair center. Thankfully, there was one pretty close to where I live. Got my computer back.
Hopefully they didn't charge you an arm and a leg on that.
No, it wasn't too bad. I mean, the labor was only like $79 minus like $20 for new customers.
Good.
I took it in on the next Monday. I took it on Monday and got it back the same day. And well, good news, Adam, you don't have to worry too much about upgrading my hard drive because they outfitted me with a new one. And nice. I decided to go ahead and just take the plunge and have them add in an SSD for me. So
cool.
That's one less thing to worry about.
That's cool, because unfortunately one of the issues that we were having was, unfortunately, we're still in that computer part drought where finding good parts and up to speed parts is a difficult thing, especially if you're looking for vital pieces of tech. And in particular, one of the things that held back on your SSD and all that stuff, as we found out, was your motherboard had some issues. And unfortunately, in order to fix that, we'd probably need to get a new one. And those weren't easy to come by, especially ones that you needed, that were going to accommodate for your specific needs as a creator, as a person who films yourself, and as a person who games as well. So I'm glad that worked out. I mean, ultimately, we still can take care of that, but now at least it gives us a little bit more time for the prices in that market to start going back down.
Yeah.
And start being normal again. But okay, aside from that, I am glad that your month of August went well. Also joining me is Brinton Volley. Brinton, how did August treat you?
Pretty well. Went by really, really quick. I'm having a difficult time believing that it's already September.
It's all right. I'm kind of there too. It's not going to help when mid-September rolls around and that's Tokyo Game Show, and then it's just like, oh god, we're coming up on the holidays. Because
Yes.
Okay.
now the way the retail market works is like it starts up October 1st. I shit you not, at our local Walmart, they're already putting up Christmas displays.
Oh, I believe it. We've had
So,
Halloween since like mid-July with my store,
oh
so
god, it's driving me crazy. But
and yeah, I've been seeing some Christmas stuff roll into us as well.
so as Alex kind of pointed out, my month of August has been kind of rocky, and one of the main reasons was we went on vacation, and I had a fun time, despite I'm about to say. I had a fun time. We had issues while we were there, but we ultimately were able to relax. The problem is that our youngest daughter decided to bring a cold with her to our vacation and didn't know
Oh.
she had it. And so we had this weird deal where every other night she refused to go to bed. And what that means is, because mommy's around, mommy must fix her problem. And there was no fixing of the problem because we knew exactly what she needed to do, and she absolutely refused to do it. So at that point, like every other night, we would have all nighters where, like, Andrea and I would like either take turns trying to get some sleep or something to be able to manage through it, and then we would make sure that Melody got like basically went to bed early the next night. And I mean, there's a number of other reasons that could be for it. It could have been the vacation, it could have been the illness, but at the end of the vacation was when we were all starting to come down with it. So like it hit Andrea, I think, first, and then it hit Andrea's parents next, and I was last, and that was fun, trying to drive home with a cold in the first day that is just driving you crazy. Yeah, that was fun. And then, of course, came back to starting school years and and I'm actually trying to finish up CDL training. I've got to finish like in the next 2 weeks, and then at that point, either pass my test or find another way to take it. So it's been crazy, but thankfully we've had the vacation to be able to get through it, as well as Gamescom happened a couple of weeks ago. We're not going to talk about it in terms of the podcast, just because the only thing that came out of it was a bunch of really good trailers, especially for a bunch of new games that are now officially on the radar, as well as some other games having a decent presentation there. In particular, Wolong Fallen. For people who don't know this, Wolong Fallen Dynasty is one that I've been following since early this year when it got announced from Team Ninja, and it's basically it's not a successor to Neo, but it's them going in a different. Instead of going in a Japanese direction, which they did with Neo, they're going in a Three Kingdoms China direction with it, which is really, really cool because it's basically Onimusha meets China. So at that point, they had a new trailer for it, and I'm very excited for that. And I'm also just kind of sitting here going, wow, up until before 2018, games like Wolong and Black Myth Wukong and Lies of P would never have been on my radar because they are all Souls-like games, and I was such a hater of Souls games at that time. That just shows you how much time has passed and the change that like live streaming has brought to this, because I have become such a hardcore Souls fan. It's not even funny. It's night and day. Now I love playing Dark Souls. Now I love playing games like Neo and Elden Ring and everything like that. So, people can laugh at me all they want, but that's what a couple of years will do to you. And I just barely noticed that after looking at all the trailers I saw at Gamescom and going, wow, a majority of these are Souls-like games. That would never have happened 3 or 4 years ago, right, Alex?
That's right.
That's how much things have changed. But we'll be talking a little bit about that. Plus, we got new trailers for Hogwarts Legacy and got a release date for that next year. Sonic Frontiers got a release date, although I'm a little perturbed at them. I have no problem saying, just because when they finally added things into the world, people remember that we complained about E3's showing from Sonic Frontiers, and this didn't help much because a lot of people were suspecting that they just didn't have enemy models ready to go or anything like that. Turns out they did. They just wanted to remove it because they wanted their focus to be the open world, except you didn't want to populate it. So yeah, that ultimately I find it funny that even though people are excited about the release date, that blew up in Sonic Team's face hard, and deservedly so. Like, because one of the things that was really cool about that trailer is being able to show that even though there will be an open world, there will be individualized levels. And those levels look great, and they never got featured at E3. And we actually got told in an interview at Gamescom, those levels were ready to be shown at E3. But they never made the trailer. So, Sonic Team, your marketing needs serious work, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a lot of really weird decisions that were made.
It's skeezy at this point, in my opinion, because you're intentionally, like, at that point, it's hard for me to say this, but you're intentionally hiding stuff. Because I guarantee you, if you'd at least shown that it was a populated world, there were isolated levels or whatever, and you decided to, I don't know, hold back the villain until games, you would have had a much better reception at E3 if you'd done that. But instead, you basically made it look like you were a bunch of dumbasses and you hadn't populated the world with enemies or figured out objectives or anything like that. And then we find out at Gamescom, oh yeah, you totally had this stuff. You just didn't want to show it. I mean, Alex,
that's weird.
As a Sonic fan, is that not frustrating?
It is frustrating. Yeah, I'm concerned. I've been pretty skeptical of the game still. It was kind of frustrating to kind of have a trailer that didn't show much of anything in the first place, especially when you really have to kind of win the fans back. Probably not the best decision on Sega's part.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, instead of taking the approach of we need to win the fans back, this literally looks like a marketing approach of fuck you fans, we're gonna do what we want. And that's not gonna earn them any favors. And I have issues with the villain reveal where it's basically just another anime girl with red eyes. My only issue on this is why can't Robotnik be the villain again? Just why can't he be? Like, I know that we now need to have Eggman as this comical character, but can we have him as the bad guy again? Because he was a good bad guy. I don't understand why we can't have him as the bad guy anymore. Because I'm kind of done with all of the Sonic, the Hedgehog lookalikes, and the weird anime girls and boys, and I'm pretty much done with all humanoids being in the Sonic universe, at least for the next 10 years. Unless you're Dr. Ivo Robotnik, then I don't have a problem with you. But yeah, it's not a good sign. But at least Hogwarts Legacy looks good. The other one that was kind of disappointing was Gotham Knights, which is technically going to be the last Arkham game before they do the Suicide Squad game. And the only thing I'll say on the matter is most of the costumes look bad. The villains aren't particularly that or not intriguing, but not that great to look at. Clayface could have been done better, in my opinion. And I don't know why they didn't. I can't say this without spoiling because we haven't done Arkham City, but let's just put it this way. In Arkham City, Harley adopts a new look, and the fact that they go back to her traditional look in it is a little infuriating. Because they actually had a really great idea going without spoiling, and then they just decided, that didn't happen. And instead, we're going to focus on a Batgirl costume that doesn't work. But that's just me. So this is kind of why we're not covering Gamescom, is like, Gamescom did have a lot of good stuff, but a lot of its AAA showing wasn't all that great. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest. Wolong is one of the few exceptions, along with Hogwarts Legacy. I think Hogwarts Legacy has a lot of great ideas, but most of the good showing out of there was from, I'm going to call this pseudo indie. It's basically third party companies that aren't very well known yet, and then indie companies that had great showings at it. That being said, shall we go ahead and get into the stories we are covering for the month of August?
Yeah, let's do it.
Starting, of course, with our top story for August, which this has been going on since the tail end of August, but it's still kind of a relevant thing to go over. At least I would think so. In the fact that Marvel is getting their butt kicked, at least somewhat, from a new controversy that has been happening specifically with the MCU in regards to the various not voice effects. I for some reason people mention this to me as voice effects, and that's not what it is. Visual effects artists coming out of the woodwork and explaining the absolutely horrid work environment that the MCU has put before them. So this is going to sound very familiar, comparing to a lot of the video game companies in like the earlier parts of this year and most of last year that were coming out and saying, "Yeah, we have horrible work environments. We have crunch that lasts for 3 or 4 months. We have basically no way to be able to go home, no way to be able to get our paychecks so that we can pay our bills. And heaven forbid, if we are single, then they don't care if we have an apartment or not because it's okay. You could just sleep in the parking lot. You love working for us, right?" That's basically to say how Marvel right now is treating their visual effects artists. And let me clarify the visual effects here. We're talking anything CG. Any CG develop. So, like for example, the recent She-Hulk series, being able to have She-Hulk become She-Hulk in CG, that's being done by these visual effects artists. Being able to do Multiverse of Madness with all of the various visual effects that went into that. We're finding out from a lot of these visual effects artists, they got put through the ringer with Marvel, and it doesn't look like Marvel's going to stop anytime soon. Marvel ain't going to give them any credit anytime soon. And more importantly, Marvel's going to keep the environment the way it is because they want to keep pushing out their MCU. So, in fact, the other part that's also equally frustrating is some of these visual effects artists are basically saying that they want to push these people into Star Wars to do exactly that. So, with that being said, Brinton, did you follow any of the insane hostile work environments that were being displayed in the gaming industry last year?
Besides Blizzard,
So there was Blizzard, there was Riot Games that also had issues with it. This wasn't 2021, but in 2020, crap, the company that makes Borderlands was doing was being revealed for that. Basically a bunch of AAA companies were getting outed as treating their employees like shit, which for people like you and me where we follow the gaming industry and we follow specific developers within it and be able to follow a project as much as you're able to, it's kind of frustrating, right? Because you want to be able to see these guys be successful and be able to revel in that success. And the reality of the video game industry is that unless you are CEO of EA, you are not going out on the yacht. You're just average everyday guy who is going through humongous amounts of crunch to be able to get out what critics will then pan out as a subpar game. And so at that point, then that gets blamed on you, and you have to forever be in this slave driving environment.
I think the most concerning thing for me is that a lot of these people are working in what are becoming unsafe environments to put out a product that, as you stated, Adam, could be labeled as a subpar game. And their creativity,
or in the case of this, a subpar series, a subpar movie, which then doesn't deliver financially.
Mm-hmm. So it's very being a creative person and going through a creative process and having what I am taking out of my soul and just putting it out there for the world to interact and criticize. It can be very demeaning is not the word. degrading. It can be incredibly degrading, and just creativity starts to dwindle. Oh my gosh, I
Love for
can't
what
think
you
of
do
words today.
starts to dwindle.
Yeah, your motivation just goes right out the door.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just find it so funny that with so many different places that produce content coming forward and sharing their experiences and showing off the fact that, hey, these work environments are very toxic. They're very we're not producing anything that's of quality, and it's very, very unsafe. And then we continue to hear things like this, followed by, oh, and we don't plan to make any changes. Like, what the actual hell?
Yeah. Well,
And and I
and
mean, this is freaking California, where their labor laws do not tolerate this kind of
or New
BS.
York. A lot. See, here's the funny thing too. A lot of these Marvel visual effects artists, they don't live in California. They live in New York, where some of those laws are even stricter.
My gosh. Yeah,
So
so I just sit there, and if I was like Marvel's legal team, Blizzard's legal team, any like reasonable
so
attorney.
Disney,
Oh yeah,
so
Disney.
Disney.
Like if I had like if I was an attorney, I would sit there and be like, "Look, you got to quit the shit. Like no more."
This is one of those times where this sounds really bad for me to say, but if I had access to a dark necromantic ritual in regards to Disney, and I could resurrect Walt, I would, and I would just have him look at what his company's become and see what he does.
I was kind of wondering where you were going with that.
I know I
Um
started with like dark necromantic ritual, but it's like, wouldn't it be interesting? Because like I know that people love to dish out on Walt now, and they love to bring the hate. But in the long end, in the long term of this, Walt, like Disney was his company, and so at that point, yeah, was Walt on the up and up? No, he actually did have some business practices back then that were kind of skeezy too, but
right.
he was still able to do a majority of the stuff that made Disney what it was ethically. And so at that point, you know, ethically in the terms of the law, he was able to do that. A lot of it is gray matter, so I know that some people will bring that up, but like have Walt look at what his empire has become, and I literally am using the term empire at this point, because it's not just this little animation company that eventually made really great films and then eventually was able to do, or not eventually, it did the park first, I believe, and then it did the animation stuff, but like it built itself into that, and now Disney's reputation is, oh, here's this big thing. I'm gonna bring this in, and then I'm overall I'm gonna destroy the product through its quality, kind of thing.
Right.
Like what would Walt do at this point? Or I'm not even gonna do this with EA because every CEO that EA has had has been horribly skeezy. But same principle applies.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, obviously, the only like what we know about
Mhm.
Walt Disney is just what's been written in history. And from what we do know, I feel that he would be very disappointed. I
Yeah,
think he'd be disgusted of what has
I think
become
he'd
of
fire
his business.
every single bit of leadership that's currently there. I think he'd fire them all, and that's not hyperbole or anything like that, because I think that he would look at what they've done to his creation, to his vision, and how much hard work he put into it, and he would just be disgusted with every single one of them.
Then proceed to try to clean up his name that has been tarnished by
Yeah,
others, knowing that it's probably going to take twice as long just to make it something good again.
yeah, and in some of those cases, I think he would get rid of that leadership, and then his priority would be what a lot of internal Disney is having happening, and is also we'll talk about this later, but is also kind of happening within the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, which is just like we need to start making some damn money. We can't worry about where our political presence is or what messages we're sending. We need to say, this is our demographic, this is who we're aiming for, and our purpose is to make cold, hard cash. And at that point, before we do any other messages or anything like that, we need to fill those coffers again, because those coffers are getting pretty empty. And so at that point, I think that also would be what would be kind of the emphasis here. But I'm going to digress here for one quick second, because I know that people are already going to have this discussion with us, and the viewpoints that have been expressed on the podcast about crunch. I don't think Alex is one of these that had this issue, but I do know that me and Romney had this discussion a little bit, where I don't necessarily hate the concept of crunch when it's managed properly. Because crunch, unfortunately, is an inevitability when it comes to business, when it comes to any kind of a job, in all honesty. Because if you look at it, like Alex, you're in retail, you have to deal with crunch at least one time a year for 2 to 3 months, and that's holiday crunch, where you have to work absurd hours in order to maintain your store so that, random grandmas who are looking for whatever tea set they're looking for don't destroy your store, kind of thing. And so everybody has to deal with it within an acceptable manner. Okay. But here's where the disagreement happened, where, and I might be misappropriating this, and that's up to Romney, but Romney was of the opinion, like, no crunch should exist in any way, shape, or form. Like, you should always be actively trying to remove it. And I don't think I ever agreed on that, because I do think that, when it comes to a business standpoint, some crunch can be acceptable. By acceptable, I mean if you have like 1 to 2 months. What is unacceptable is going 6 to 7 months of crunch, which a lot of AAA companies in the gaming industry are doing right now. I think even you found out, Alex, a lot of anime companies were adopting really bad crunch practices. I want to say in either 2020 or 2021.
Yeah. I mean, not even just then. It's not. Sadly, it's been a problem in the industry for a very long time.
Because crunch lasts pretty much year round, right? It's like 10 months out of 12 where it's happening consistently.
Pretty much, yeah.
and so you and I would both agree that that's an unacceptable rate, because that's going to kill people. That's going to kill your employees. That's going to kill morale. That's going to kill their motivation, which in turn, kind of like a call center, basically creates a lot of turnaround, which in companies like, I don't know, Kadokawa's not a good example. Studio Bones or something like that, you don't want to have turnaround, because these people are the people that you want to rely on for years to make really worthwhile animation projects, right?
That's right.
So why would you want to have like high turnaround in these environments? Yet that's what crunch being most of the year kind of creates as in terms of an environment. So having that acceptable crunch is fine. Like if it's 1 to 2 months, in the case that I gave with Alex, like his is 3 months. That's pushing it a little bit in my opinion, but it is acceptable to have holiday crunch. I get it. The holidays, everybody, because here's the thing. Everybody wants to make it to Christmas, and then you do that 2-week burnout for a lot of people. In the case of game companies, when they release their game, they give people a month of cooldown to be able to get over all that, and then they come back and start doing patches. Oh wait, the gaming industry is actually starting to get rid of that month and only give them a week. So that being said, I've already seen so with that amount of crunch being labeled, like there is an amount of crunch that is acceptable. Marvel is pushing it way beyond anything imaginable, because we're talking about visual effects artists that not only work on their movies, on their current series, they're also trying to push them either into animated series that they want to do for Disney Plus, or they want to push them into other franchises like Star Wars and run them down even harder. Like, how would you, like, you're an employee of this, Alex and Brinton. What would you feel if, like, you were being run into the ground and you were going to come over to your boss and say, like, look, you guys are running me into the ground here. I'm going to need like a month-long break. Actually, you can't have a month-long break, man. We're going to move you into Star Wars, man. You're going to be the greatest visual effects artist for Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 3.
Hikes. Yeah.
I'm
It's
sorry,
ridiculous.
Alex. That needs a little bit more anger, please.
Just yikes.
Oh, sorry. I thought you
Yikes,
said
it's terrible.
thanks. I thought you said thanks. I'm like, thanks.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. That's pretty good, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yikes. Exactly. Brenton, your thoughts on that?
Well, I work in a very different industry, so if I felt like I was being run into the ground, I can 100% go to my supervisor and be like, I need a couple of mental health days, and they will be granted.
Yeah, you're in a way different industry, but yeah, if you were in this industry, I think nothing against you, Brenton, but I think it'd kill you because like you would probably have like a heart attack or something, like with the demanding schedule that they would have for you because you'd never go home. You would like, you're in a relationship right now. You'd never see your boyfriend. You'd never see anybody living with like anybody in your boyfriend's family or anything like that. They have two little dogs there. You'd never see them. That would probably kill you, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah.
This is what game devs go into a lot of the time.
It's pretty terrible.
I mean, at the same time, though, not to completely discredit everything that we have been talking about, that is something that they should, like, essentially be prepared going into that type of employment. And as they're getting their education, work experience, and starting to, like, enter into the field, like, for me, I would imagine, like, okay, is this something that I really want to do? Is this something that I'm going to be able to handle? Like, those are conversations that they should also be having with themselves. Again, not to completely discredit the fact that there are these CEOs, managing directors, et cetera, that run their employees into the ground. However, again, going into this field, there has to be some form of common sense, and there needs to be some sort of an agreement here that they kind of knew what they were going to get themselves into, especially if they're really good at what they do.
What the sad reality is, Brenton, there is an agreement, and Disney never follows it. Because, like I said, like some of these people that are out of California, like they work specifically for Disney, but others are independent VFX artists that live out of places like Texas and New York. And even though they have written agreements treating them as
Adam, I'm gonna stop you before you keep going. I meant an agreement between the three of us that these people who choose to get into this type of career path should exercise some form of common sense that they're going to be very busy.
But they are, and that's where I was going. Is we're talking there are actually a lot of independent voice effects or Jiminy Christmas, I keep on saying voice effects, visual effects artists that don't work for Disney, that are not official employees. They are independent contractors. And have you ever been an independent contractor, Brenton?
Never been in a position to be one.
Most creative professions are. And in fact, even when you are a contracted game developer or whatever, you are still considered an independent contractor. And there are laws that have to be adhered to when you are an independent contractor. And I have no problem telling you, Disney ain't following any of those laws when they treat these guys. So I get what you're saying, where they need to have some common sense in that regard, and they do. But then they get driven to overdrive. And here's the worst part about that is, here's what happens when an independent contractor says no. Disney has a lot of pull, and they can immediately get them blacklisted from working with anybody else. And this does happen. And even though our New York Post article doesn't show this, I've seen plenty of articles where some of these exact same people are already stating, we can't get work if we say no to Disney. If we say no to Disney, we will never work in this profession again, even if we want to go work with somebody like New Line, or if another project comes up that we're more interested in. If we say no to Disney, we will literally get blacklisted from the industry.
Mm.
Which is also ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
And I love how some corporate representatives are framing this, because we're all Lord of the Rings fans, right? So have we all seen like some of the appendices of the extended versions of the film where you find out just how much hard work went into each of these films? All of that was willingness. All of that, like Peter Jackson didn't hold this sword of Damascus over their heads of like, if you don't make sure that I have this Witch King of Angmar footage by tomorrow, then I will literally make it so you can't work in this industry ever again. Like Peter Jackson, and what's worse is like Hollywood's holding up what they're doing as what Peter Jackson did. And even Peter Jackson has come out and said, I didn't do that. I literally told them if this was not going to be their thing, that I totally understand, and that we would move on however we could. But he always made it a voluntary thing. And in some cases, like some of the visual effects artists that worked on Return of the King alone, they literally lived in their office building for like a month while they kept working on like the final visual effects in the tail end of that movie. And it was, and the only reason they kept them there because Peter couldn't offer extra pay or anything like that. It was the prestige that came from it, and it was because of their passion for the project. And Hollywood is basically saying what they're doing to their visual effects artists right now is exactly what Peter Jackson did when he did the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And even, like I said, Peter's come out, and even the New Line rep has come out and said, no, we didn't do that. We didn't work them this hard and basically hold this decapitation blade, or this guillotine over their head, saying if you don't do it, then we'll kick you out of the industry. And what's I also have no problem saying what's even sadder about that is that if some of those people have left and have found success outside of that, but it's so fearful to have big bad Disney putting a big black mark on your resume that a lot of people aren't willing to take that chance, especially when they have families. And I totally get if they have families, but you know, as much as I want to say like there is another side to that, and you would be able to, there are other ways independently that you would be able to earn that money. Unfortunately, these guys just sit there and take it in Marvel, and because they can't say no to the paycheck and they can't say no to the prestige that comes from working on the Marvel project, and then they do their absolute best to just try to worm their way out of the next agreement, kind of thing. But I am actually like getting into my opinion on this. I am so glad that some of these people are actually starting to speak out and starting to say like just how much that they've gone through, because some of the visual effects that these guys have designed, like we're seeing interviews from people who worked on Endgame, Infinity War, all the way back to like Age of Ultron, that have not said anything until now because of all of the unacceptable business practices that companies like Disney and even to some extent Warner Brothers before their merger were doing. So yeah, you guys' opinions on this, on people speaking out about it.
I'm glad people are speaking out about it. You know, I think this needs to be brought to attention, and
Mhm.
I probably side more with Romney on this. That I think crunch is really unnecessary and comes from a lot of just poor planning and just bad decision making overall than it does of any true necessity. So that so I really wish it's a practice that could just stop already, because I just think it is wholly unnecessary, especially in entertainment. It's just, if you can't get the product out on time, then you just need to delay it at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Brenton, your thoughts?
Sentiments are the same as Alex. I don't think I could say what he just said any better.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I have the one point of disagreement. I just don't see how you could get rid of crunch, because crunch is in so many business models. I don't know how you could ultimately get rid of it, but if you can minimize it extremely to the extent of like it's just a month in the year, and good businesses that know how to manage it know how to manage the tail end of it. So you work people endlessly for a month, and then you give them like half a month off to go, like, and even in some cases game companies used to do this years ago. They kind of stopped because they got progressively expensive, but they would then do like company retreats for the entire team that worked on God of War Ragnarok, and just all have them go spend like a solid week or even like 5 to 10 days, like coming together in the brotherhood that they already had as employees, but then letting them go home, letting them go back and relax. And then also when getting them back there, giving them kind of an easy schedule to get into the next project. That doesn't happen anymore. I think if you could bring things back down, it could be a lot more acceptable. You wouldn't have as many issues as you are in the gaming industry, in the entertainment industry, any industry ultimately. I mean, this is in the retail industry alone, Alex. Like you and I could have this discussion forever. How Christmas, like the Christmas shopping era, going all the way into October is ridiculous, and it should be moved all the way back to December. Like that would solve so much in the fact that you wouldn't have to deal with so much stress for 3 months straight, and it's just that 1 month.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that at least gives you prep time. You know?
Yeah. And see, to me, that would be less of a crunch versus like just better planning as opposed to, because I think I don't know if they really think that spreading it over 3 months is better, but I just don't think it's worth for retail to spread it over 3 months, right?
But that's
especially
ultimately what I'm
my
saying.
store.
Is if you can plan, like good companies plan crunch around, and so at that point, like so for example, my brother used to work for a company that did this. They did a bunch of banking software, and so they basically made it work where I think it was November when they had to fulfill their contracts at the end, like for the remainder of the year, where they had to do the updates on the banking software they were sending to all these places. So they basically said, okay, November's our crunch month where we make sure that we have everything out, because in December we're getting it out to the companies to have their updated version, right? So here's what we do. Like they give you, or the way that he explained it was like they would give them October, and October is prep time. They ease up the schedules. They make sure that they understand that once November hits, we've got to crunch this out to make sure that it fits every single criteria of this contract, so that at that point it can go out to the respective areas. So they give you the prep time so you can go work with your families, go work with your relatives or whatever, and then you can get into it. And that also being said, if something happens in the middle of the crunch, which a lot of game companies, this doesn't even happen right now in the entertainment industry. Let's just say, heaven forbid, something happens in the family. You're out of the crunch period. Just period.
Yeah.
You've had a bereavement. You've had a baby being born or whatever. You're out. Like, well, they get you for however many days they got you, and then you're done. You help out however much you can, and it doesn't affect your job status or anything like that, because shit happens, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in the gaming industry.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem of the gaming industry, and I'm sure it applies to a lot of other places. Like even the companies that love to say that it's voluntary, in massive air quotes, voluntary, but they'll hold it over you. They'll either guilt you into it, or they'll try to make you the pariah of the coworkers who are sweating it out.
Yep.
And it's like, oh,
and that works out so well, right?
Absolutely.
Because that doesn't create a hostile work environment for that one person who just barely had a kid and has to go try and help their wife out with, kid number 3, where the other 2 kids are already insane making and everything like that. Yeah. That's gonna solve so many things. Make that employee the enemy of everybody else on the team.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that helps. That works out a lot.
Yeah.
Except now, in the case of Disney, it's just like, oh yeah, but that asshole in New York who's working on his own, how dare he do that? Yeah, he's the one that's holding us all back.
Yeah. It's terrible, and that's the biggest problem with this industry.
Yep. So I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head. I'm happy this is happening, because this is a discussion that the entertainment industry needs to address, and needs to address now, because this isn't a new thing. If you actually go and do your homework in the entertainment industry, crap like this has been happening for at least a decade, and if not longer than that. And it's definitely a discussion that needs to happen from here on in, whether or not it's Hollywood that becomes the main source of entertainment, or another burgeoning industry kind of takes over, whether it be indie films or however they do it. But this is definitely a discussion that I think all of us would agree on. This discussion needs to be had, and it needs to be had in the public eye. Apparently, I'm the only one that thinks that.
No, I totally agree. I was waiting to see if Britton had thoughts to chime in.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the next one. And cards on the table. And I've even said this to both of you. I literally wanted to hide this from you guys just to get a genuine reaction out of this. But people might remember earlier this year, I brought up a story where there was the possibility that Twitter was looking into adding an edit button. And I know that me and Alex had this discussion. I don't think Brinton was part of it just yet, but I remember like we were on a stream or something like that, and we were just talking about why doesn't Twitter have an edit button? Why doesn't it let you, like, if you make one minor typo, give you a 30-second button where you can go fix it and move on with your life, right? Well, it looks like after almost 15 years, they are finally going to be, they are testing at this point, they are testing an edit button. So Twitter is letting you do what technically Facebook lets you do before then.
What every old BBS bulletin board, whatever forum service lets you do for decades
Any blog
before.
would let you do. What any search engine will let you do. Anything that involves text at all would let you do. 15 years later, Twitter's now on board with that.
Good grief.
Do people realize how backwards that sounds coming out of my mouth? It's like, come on, like at the end of the day, Twitter is a restrictive word processor.
Yeah, and not a very good one.
And you can't edit your shit.
Yeah, I know, it's so stupid.
Like, Brinton, how many times, like, before you had your Twitter absence, and then how many times have you had a moment where you just put out a tweet and then you realize you misspelled something, but you just but you press the tweet button, so there's nothing you can do about it?
When I was really active on Twitter, all the time. It didn't matter how many times it didn't matter how many times I read out loud to myself what I was writing. I would always find something after the fact.
So at that point, like, just to bring this, what was your answer to that? Like you put out this tweet, you realize that you put out a typo. Do you let it sit out there? Do you delete it? Do you put up a little comment saying, "Hey, I made a silly typo"?
If it was something that I really, really, really was excited about, I would full on delete and rewrite the entire tweet. If it was just like, who cares, then I just left it. And that's where I've been like the last several years.
That's kind of my viewpoint too, is like, because every time that would happen is like I would be on a roll, and you guys kind of know this just because I think, Brinton, you've done a little bit of writing. So at that point, like, you all kind of understand this. You're on a roll, you have a really great train of thought going, and you're just putting words out onto the page, and then you put out the tweet, and it's just like, fuck! Because you realize you forgot to put the E at the end of the.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times.
Can you count them? I guarantee you I can't.
I cannot.
Yeah.
No.
That shit happens. But
yeah.
Unlike with Facebook, where, like, and some people do this on Facebook as well, where they just delete the Facebook post and then redo it. Because sometimes you can easily, like, if you're OCD like myself, you could just like copy paste and then fix it and then put it up. And it's just fine.
Even forgetting like little typos, like forgetting a letter or forgetting a word or something. Like, what if you're trying to link to something, right? And you put it, maybe you copied the wrong link down. Maybe you copied half the link, right? And then it's like, oh, well, now
or in the case of Twitter, you can't put all the link because you've run out of characters.
Yeah.
And let's just say you don't know how to use Bitly and other places like that, you know, because like I'm as technologically proficient as I need to be, but that doesn't mean that I'm like a boomer on a couple of things. Like, I can't Bitly. I can't figure that shit out for the life of me. Trying to figure out online polls still is a difficult thing for me. But it's just like, yeah, why isn't this ever existed? Why can't you just let me edit my damn post?
For real. It's so stupid.
It's where in a lot of cases, this is why I post so much to our Discord server recently. It's because I'm just so sick and tired of dealing with Twitter and Facebook in this regard, because I just, like, I gotta delete the whole damn post and go repost it, and it's all just a big pain in the ass and all that. But, oh, trust me, it gets better. So, I've already explained this to you guys, but to those who don't know, Twitter is also testing a feature called Twitter Blue. And people might notice like a lot of new features hitting Twitter. For example, being able, I believe they call this feature conversations, where you actually can have like a big Discord conversation with hundreds of people in it on Twitter, and being able to openly say things, or you can even cordon off and say, okay, these people can't talk, but these 7 people can. So I've actually seen people do public podcasts on Twitter that way. It just basically is an excuse to live stream on Twitter for their audience. Well, Twitter Blue is experimenting with all of these features, but the ultimate end result of that is going to be that Twitter Blue becomes a paid service on Twitter where you pay $10 a month to have access to this stuff. Oh, and guess what button is also going to be part of Twitter Blue?
You can't be serious. Are they going to really hide the edit button behind the paywall?
They're talking about it.
Oh, God.
They are literally talking about it. So, like, the thing that you and I have agreed on for like 15 years they should have had, they're going to hide it behind a paywall button because, you know, obviously Twitter's having their own financial issues and difficulties. They've had them for most of their business life, but they're now seeing like everybody else around them putting up paid services. So like, why not? And it just so happens that, you know, this thing that everybody's been wanting for years, we'll just put it behind that paywall too. The silence from Brenton is deafening. I can only imagine the rage that's coming.
Oh, no rage. I'm just not going to pay for it. Like, I can live without
I'm
an
not
edit
paying for it either.
Yep.
I can live without an edit button. However, I personally think that it is ridiculous to ask people to pay an additional $10 to be able to correct a typo.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That this shouldn't, like, this is a feature that should have been in Twitter back in 2008, and now you basically want me to pay $10 a month on a platform that people don't really even want to use anymore. Like, you're currently back on Twitter, Brenton, but I think you and I have both kind of said, you know, Twitter's still a cesspool. Like, I basically am on it just to laugh at whatever memes come across my feed. That's about it. I think you pretty much do the same thing, don't you?
No, I use it for video game news and just following merchandise outlets. Yeah. I don't really engage. I don't engage with the comment section. I don't engage with other people. It's very much like, here's a good example. The SarahB.net website. It has a Twitter.
Yeah.
I follow it. So that way, when a promo code for a free Pokemon in Sword and Shield comes up, like it did today, oh, there's the code. I'm going to go ahead and screenshot it so I don't have to go searching for it later. Now I can get my free Gengar. Like, awesome.
So at that point, like Twitter Blue is probably not even on your radar because you just don't use Twitter enough to utilize any of the other services.
No, I don't. I don't tweet, and if I do, it's on the rare chance that I want to throw my name in for a sweepstakes. I know I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like, oh, write like a 3 like a comment using 3 different words, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to misspell 3 words. Like I
So ultimately, this program would be wasted on you. And so
if this was like 5 years ago, no, I would pay for the $10, 100%. Or rather, I would pay the $10. 5 year, like, but it's 5 years too late. Like, I'm not.
exactly, and I think that's probably like the way that you're kind of viewing things, Brinson, is pretty much the majority of the Twitter audience, the Twitter base, in my opinion. I'm not talking about the crazy people who are constantly going out and debating every single day. Usually, the average person who uses Twitter, the ones who have like, like when you look at what does they call it on an iPhone, where like they track your screen time, how much time you're looking at a screen, looking at social media or whatever. These are the people that would have like 10 hours most on Twitter, and primarily it's because they do what you're saying. They follow their favorite game developers, they follow their favorite t-shirt outlets, they look for whatever deals, they contribute to those contests, or in my case, they follow a bunch of meme channels that basically are just making jokes all the time. And the only like sometimes I reply to those, but most of the time I just share them, kind of thing. And I think that's the majority of like how the average Twitter user interacts with the platform now. And so at that point, you have to ask the question, is the edit button even worth it for them now? And I actually would dare say I don't think it is, especially not behind a paywall. So this is probably just one of those things where, I still want to make this a big deal. Like I've told Alex, we make fun of Valve for not being able to count to 3. I want this to be a bigger deal than Valve not counting to 3, that it took them 15 years to add an edit button. But it's also just on the point of like, yeah, I just kind of don't care. And I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, I think that's the majority of the user base on Twitter.
I think so. I think that sounds about right.
Because like even the hardcore debaters on Twitter, like wherever you land, I don't think they want to pay $10 a month for something that they can do for free.
Think that they care if what they're arguing has typos either, because their point is still getting across at the end of the day.
Pretty much. So at that point, like ultimately, my final thoughts on this is Twitter, you ran out of time on this one, and nobody gives a crap, and now it's just gonna blow up in your face. I honestly, I mean, obviously, if you feel differently, bro, I think Twitter Blue's gonna fail for them. Ultimately, I think I would not be surprised, like despite the lawsuit that's going on that's going on in October with Alex, or not Alex. Yeah, Alex is involved in the Twitter
That's a lawsuit.
Alex is changing his name to Elon Musk. That's what's happening. Alex, Alex, how's your British accent? Do you think you can pull off an Elon?
Well, first of all, it's not British; it's South African with Elon Musk. So,
but it's kind of British there, British tinge. So at that point, like, how do you feel about changing your last name to Musk?
No,
because I just barely called you Alex Musk. So, yeah, you're involved in the Twitter lawsuit. I don't know if you realize that, but you are.
oh crap!
Oh crap is right. But I think even with the lawsuit, like, it would not surprise me if Twitter is like the first social media platform to legit up and die, of the ones that currently exist. Like it's basically Twitter will become the next MySpace.
No, I followed way too many things.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of popularity, it'll just kind of sink, and then at that point, something else will rise up and take its place.
Because today the Pokemon Center Twitter page showed off all their Halloween goodies, and I just barely made an order to the Pokemon Center. And so here I am, all frustrated.
Didn't they confirm that the Pokemon stuff, like apparently there's going to be Halloween DLC that's going to be in, like I guess they've been doing this for Sword and Shield and
I'm talking about merchandise.
Oh no. Oh no, I was actually going into something else. Where I guess
Oh,
they do like seasonal DLC, and they were already saying like you would see the Halloween stuff in Scarlet and Violet when it started.
well, that will be interesting considering that it comes out weeks after Halloween.
Yeah, yeah, that would. I don't know how they would do that, but yeah. But in terms of, I get it. In terms of merchandise, but yeah, it's.
They put out the new starter Pokemon plushies for the American audience, and that ended up becoming a $50 purchase.
When are they going to put out the final evolutions? I'm sorry, I'm having an ADD moment here. When are they going to put out the final evolutions for the
You're
starters for
not the
Scarlet and Violet?
Oh no, you're not the only one who's asked that. Like the amount of like recently there's been more and more information like during the
Yeah,
last
their
several
flow's
weeks.
gotten better, but
However, just only a month ago everybody was just like the game comes out in 3 months.
well,
Like
because it's due in November, and I've already heard that they want to try and do another direct like half a month before it comes out.
believe
So
that.
I don't know. That's a little close. I think they'll be in marketing mode for the game at that point. They won't worry about the direct showing off features unless
Yeah,
they have
it's
like a good first time patch.
yeah, it's just the way they've approached talking about information about a new generation Pokemon game, it they're approaching this one very differently, but we've like super digressed. So
Yeah. No. But there's a reason I'm bringing this up because, it's the way it goes. In a podcast, you have ADD moments, and sometimes you have to run with them. So let's go ahead and get into the next one because I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head. The edit button's a bad idea because it's not going to do anything for Twitter. But this is something
it's
that
not a bad idea. Putting it behind a paywall is a
putting
bad
it behind
idea.
a paywall is ultimately a bad idea. Yes. So at that point, we talked about this a little bit last podcast, but it's a little bit more relevant here. So Warner Brothers and Discovery are merging, and that's creating a change overall in direction for both companies, especially with interim CEO David Zaslav being involved with both products. Discovery hasn't been hit so much, but last month we had already heard about the first wave of what is being called roughly the DC culling. And it's not just DC. Let me clarify this really quick. There's a lot of projects right now on the Warner Brothers end that David Zaslav is looking at and going, yeah, we can't market this. No, we don't have the money to be able to do it. For example, one of the big ones that gets held up is the upcoming, or it was more in the rumor stage because they had concept stuff for it. They'd filmed a little bit, but ultimately the Joss Whedon Batgirl, because Joss Whedon was the guy who conceived it but didn't ultimately direct it. That Batgirl got canceled. And I know a lot of people were pissed off. I know Kevin Smith came out on Twitter basically saying that was a bad idea because the woman that they picked for Barbara Gordon, or actually it wasn't even going to be Barbara. I think they were going to go with another one. They basically picked a Latino or a Latina version of Batgirl and then ultimately canceled it. And so Kevin Smith made it sound like, oh, well, the reason they did it was racist. But ultimately, facts were not on his side because basically, if people remember from the KOTOR remake, stuff got shown to marketing people. They didn't like what they were seeing with Batgirl and ultimately decided to can the project as early on as it was at that time, which is not like they weren't in full production at that point. So Batgirl obviously suffered that. Another one that suffered, if people haven't heard about this, is the Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman movie, which is basically Black Superman. He wanted to do Black Superman, even though there was going to be another film being made by another director, because I know this project existed because they tried to get Taika Waititi on it, and Taika couldn't do it because he was on Thor. But they wanted to do a second movie based on a Black Superman, and that one I think is still in development hell, but the Ta-Nehisi Coates one has been canceled, plus a bunch of animated series, animated movies. Pretty much the DC animated universe is dead. because a lot of its future projects have been canceled in light of they just don't have the funds to be able to do them. But the story that we're talking about in particular was actually a prediction that I made during that discussion, which was that the series Harley Quinn. Bridget, do you watch Harley Quinn?
No.
I know that Alex doesn't, but the Harley Quinn animated series has been renewed for season 4 amidst all of these animation cullings that are happening. So for those who are excited about that, and I know that there's actually quite a few people who are excited about it, Harley Quinn is not going to be canceled. I think it would actually have been a dumb idea to cancel it because it is basically one of the biggest things that is bringing people to HBO Max right now is the Harley Quinn series just through sheer word of mouth. They've also used really great YouTube campaigns to be able to advertise Harley Quinn. And yes, this is the Harley Quinn that is starring Kaylee Cuoco as Harley. So at that point, yeah, so this has been officially renewed. We found out from Patrick Schumacher, who I believe is the top writer or the head writer for it. So that's not going to happen. And sadly, it's probably one of the few less casualties out of it. Like, it's one of the few survivors is more the word I'm looking for, which is kind of sad because they did have a couple of Green Lantern films in the works. They were actually going to do a couple of animated Aquaman films to kind of flesh out that universe before Aquaman 2. All of that has gone down the toilet because of the merger with Discovery. And now, even though David Zaslav has come out and said, you know, they're basically taking everything back to the drawing board and seeing what's going to work and then prioritizing the projects to be able to do them right, that a lot of the end results of that are not going to be happening in the next 2 years at least. You're not going to be able to see the fruits of what they're doing right now until about then. So the story that I'm more aiming to talk about, I know that the story that we're talking about is that Harley Quinn got renewed, but more that I brought this up was the culling of all of the projects that are happening. There were Mortal Kombat projects that got canceled. There were DC was the majority of it. There was even talk of like animated Fantastic Beasts or additions into the Harry Potter universe that were going to be animated. All of those have been destroyed simply because they all went back to the drawing board. So with that being said, like, you guys' thoughts on that? Like,
This is a dumpster fire. Jeez.
It's a dumpster fire. I agree with you on it.
Yeah. By the way, in regards to Batgirl, it looks like the movie was pretty much mostly shot. I guess they still had some visual effects to finish, right? They still had some scenes that they needed to finish, but the movie was essentially in post. But yeah, they just abandoned it. A $90 million movie for an easy tax write-off. So there you go.
Something like that. And ultimately, I do know that it came down to marketing individuals, including David Zaslav, going, we can't do anything with this. So obviously, what they filmed, marketing people didn't agree with. So I mean, it's $90 million down the drain, but man, maybe would have been a better idea to have that test screening happen before, $50 million got spent on it. Kind of thing. That's unfortunately the situation that they're currently in.
90's more than 50, Adam. What are you talking about?
Oh no, I'm saying like maybe it would have been better if they caught this at 50 million instead.
Oh, caught it at 50 million. Okay,
yeah, no. I
sounds
didn't say
like
spend another 50 million. No, hell no.
Okay, I was like, what?
Dude, there's even talk right now that, and I know Michael Keaton has come out and voiced his concern that this might happen. There's talk that Warner Brothers Discovery are considering not putting out the Flashpoint movie because they're just like, the marketing people are worried it's going to be a dumpster fire. And I'm kind of on this. This is one of those times where I understand the business end of it, but the film is finished and a majority of the voice of the visual effects have been put in. And I'm kind of on Michael Keaton's side on this one because as Alex might, and probably even Brenton, if you followed any of this, it took a lot of cajoling and convincing to get Michael Keaton to come and be Batman on this movie. He did not want to do it. He was worried about getting COVID. He was worried about having to do, any kind of training for this or anything I love Michael Keaton, but he's getting up there in years. And so he had a lot of honest concerns about doing this. And he ultimately listened to the fan outcry for him to come on and decided, okay, I'll do it. And now the movie that it took so much to get him to be involved with, the main company is basically saying, we really probably shouldn't put this out. And look, at this point, in my opinion, given where they were at, this is kind of like correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, this is basically the same situation they would have been as the Robert Pattinson Batman. Because I remember when that one was getting near its release date, they were talking about not releasing it.
I don't know about not releasing it. That one was, I think the problem with the Pattinson Batman was because COVID, and that they were worried about, like, can we do this in theaters? Can we not? What's going to happen?
No, there was also internal discussion as because of all of the money that had been spent because of said COVID problems on whether or not to just scrap it, even though at the time, what I'm talking about, it was 80% done. Like it's I think it was an 80-hour shoot, or not 80-hour shoots, but it was an additional shooting, and they were adding visual effects and things like that to that. And they were thinking about scrapping it because, you know, basically that movie had been a sinkhole, and I was in the court of basically saying that you just need to have it come out at that point. You just need to have it come out, let it do what it's going to do. If it's going to be a walking meme fest, embrace it and move on. Kind of thing. And that's kind of my viewpoint. This might sound mean of me to say, this is my viewpoint on Flashpoint, is it probably wasn't the best idea to do it because like what they were planning on doing with the Flash movie ended up being Flashpoint. So this was definitely one of those things that should have been like a Justice League 2, but you'd already spent so much time, money, effort. You had the actors out there, you got it all filmed and everything like that. At that point, you just need to have it come out and let it be what it's going to be. And that's why I'm saying I'm in Michael Keaton's camp, because Michael Keaton's basically saying, you know, I came out here and I did this for the fans. Just let it come out. Am I in the wrong?
Right. I don't know. The Flash is a whole nother mess of its own, mostly because of Ezra Miller.
Well, but no, and I totally get it. But at this point, like, given where it's at, you let it come out and you let it do what it's going to do, kind of thing. And as a marketing guy, you probably just, you brush it off. You if it's going to, like I said with Batman, if it's going to be bad, embrace that it's bad, kind of thing. Embrace that it's bad. If it's going to be good, embrace that it's good, and you run with it as best as you can. But ultimately, you need to mitigate this as much as possible, and that means getting it out into the theater and at least seeing if it's going to make money, kind of thing. Brenton, like, are you getting what I mean with Flashpoint?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's kind of my viewpoint on the matter. Like, I can understand that stuff, and that's why I can also understand the viewpoint on Batgirl, is that if it wasn't that far along in terms of their overall plan, yeah, it sucks they spent $90 million on it. I wish they'd spent $40 million on it, but ultimately, you know, that's the marketing guy's decision. The only thing that's really irritating me on this is they actually had some really great ideas that, I mean, I might be the one in the room that has the different opinion here, but Brenton, have you seen some of the DC animated universe?
I haven't watched any of it, actually.
Really? Dude,
yeah.
I'd recommend a lot of that to you, because I know, like, some of the Batman movies would be really good for you. But, like, I honestly am of the opinion, I think the DC animated universe could keep things afloat while they try to figure out what they want to do with the live action films. Because I'm not saying that the DC animated universe was doing major bank. I mean, they were always really quiet releases. And aside from maybe Justice League versus Teen Titans, they weren't getting a whole lot of money. And primarily because I don't think Warner Brothers spent half as much marketing money as they should have on those things to get them out there, because they were just that damn good. Ultimately, I just think they could have easily kept things afloat while they tried to figure out, okay, do we want to do Aquaman 2? Do we want to release that? Do we want to do Aquaman 3 at the end of that? Do we want to entertain the concept of bringing back Zack Snyder's universe? Like, ask all those questions, but then in the meantime, your DC animation studio could keep things going and you could get some income from it. Hopefully that at least makes some sense. I mean, I'm happy that Harley is getting renewed and people get that. I'm actually not a fan of Harley. I've watched the first 2 seasons and I do think that there's charm to it. It's just not my thing. It's basically like, it's like The Office meets supervillains ultimately, because it's basically seeing the other side of the coin. Like, what happens when evil Sinestro is not trying to take over the world? Like, what is he doing with his Monday morning kind of thing? And that's an interesting thing to do. And I can see why people find it entertaining. It's just, for me, I don't care about that aspect. I only care about the fact that Sinestro's robbing the bank and Green Lantern has to stop him, So it didn't work out for me, but ultimately I will just say I am upset that Harley is one of the few survivors. Like, I mean, we're talking lots of things got canceled, including, by the way, Young Justice. Young Justice was slated for a season 4, and I think it was slated for a season 5, and season 5 is not going to happen. So at that point, unfortunately, that dies. Yeah, any thoughts you guys want to share on Harley getting renewed, but everything else getting canceled?
I can empathize with people who were excited for these shows to continue on, in the capacity that there were shows I was extremely excited to watch that were canceled, just put on the chopping block and tossed aside like it was nothing. So I can empathize with that in terms of content. Like, I can't because I haven't watched anything.
Yeah. No, actually, you know what? I might actually send a few things your way, because I can't remember. Are you, like, in terms of DC, you're a big Batman fan, but I can't remember if you're a fan of anything else.
It's primarily Batman that I really like. So,
because we're talking 6 to 7 Batman movies that are absolutely fucking amazing.
Yeah, just like, I mean, toss over as many recommendations that you suggest, and I will take a look when I get a chance.
Because I mean, we're talking like the way that they started it up was they actually tried to do the current excuse me, they were trying to do the current Bat family that was introduced in the New 52 and brought into Rebirth and everything like that. So you had really great ideas. Like, for example, one of the best stories they've made in the last 10 years, Court of Owls, got made into a movie. So you got to see that. You got to see Damian Wayne in probably one of the better renditions, unless you're, because I know that some people really love his Injustice version. So you had a lot of that happening, but then you also had characters like Batwing being brought into it. In my opinion, the better Cassandra Cain was done in the animated movies as opposed to the CW show. If you want to see legit Batgirl or Batwoman, that's where it is in those animated films. So that being said, yeah, that's ultimately what's going on with it. It's great and all that Harley's getting renewed, but the one that hits me the most is there was about 5 different Green Lantern films in development, and they were actually finally talking about doing Blackest Night as a film event for DC Animated Universe, and that isn't going to happen. And that, to me, is like one of the better event comics that I've read in the last 5-10 years. So that sucks. But moving on, so I hate to say this. We brought up Gamescom, but already we're talking about Tokyo Game Show. Why are we talking about Tokyo Game Show? Well, our favorite company, Konami, has made a very bold announcement. We don't know what it's about specifically yet, but according to Gematsu, who got it first, Konami has come out and basically said at Tokyo Game Show, which is going to happen mid-September, so the 15th through the 18th, Konami will come out with unveiling a new game belonging to a, quote, world-loved franchise. And the speculation train went on from there. Because here's the thing, Konami has not been involved in the gaming industry that much over the years. They've actually changed that out with bringing games like Getsu Fumiden and Live Alive, which were Japanese-only titles, now out into basically every other market. But they also have had a couple of interesting rumors that were being tackled with it, and a few of them I wanted to bring to you guys. So the first ones that I need to talk about are the more obvious ones. New Metal Gear game. Yeah, probably not happening. Alex, do you see any possibility that Hideo Kojima announces that he will be working with Konami again?
I could see the possibility of there being a new Metal Gear game, but not by Kojima. No.
And do you see that doing well?
No.
No. Metal Gear Survive did not do well, in my opinion. I know that there's a resurgence for Metal Gear Rising, and a lot of people have said, oh, well, if you did a Metal Gear Rising 2, that might be fine because Kojima wasn't involved in that. I honestly think it actually might be a bad idea to involve yourself in Metal Gear, because unfortunately, Rising did not do well when it initially came out. It's only gained a niche success due to the controversy surrounding Kojima, and Metal Gear Survive did not do it. It did not bring anybody back as Metal Gear, like Metal Gear fans, it did not bring them back. So I do not think it's going to be a Metal Gear game. The next one that I have to bring up is Silent Hill. There's been rumors going around since 2021 that there is a Silent Hill 2 remake that has been being worked on. We don't know by whom, but supposedly the big rumors is that either Kojima or Del Toro are involved, or both, with the Silent Hill 2 remake. And I don't believe that in the slightest. I anything involving Kojima and Konami, I do not believe at this point.
But I can't imagine Del Toro. Right after what happened with PT, I think he'd be like, nah, F that.
I think he would do. I think he would do something with Kojima. I just don't think he'd do anything with Konami.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, yeah. I don't think he would go back to Konami after what happened with PT.
Because like a lot of companies courted Del Toro when Pacific Rim hit, and Konami was the only one that ever actually got him to listen, kind of thing. So I don't see him going to anybody else. But I could, like, if Kojima's involved, I could see him getting involved, because I do know that they've had a good friendship that has blossomed from PT. So that could technically happen. I don't know, Brenton. Brenton, are you a Silent Hill fan?
Scribe fan. I don't like
aware of the
things.
franchise.
I am aware of the franchise. I just don't like horror. So okay. I mean, I'll sit there and suffer. I just won't actually play it myself.
Well, I'm finding this out now, because I actually got told early on by friends, like, don't play Silent Hill, it will mess with your head. And I've since played the first Silent Hill, and I actually did enjoy it, but I have now since been told, like, yes, Silent Hill 2 is the best of the series, but if you are suffering from depression or anything like that, you don't want to play that game, because the focal point of that, like, horror isn't even the focal point of Silent Hill 2, apparently. It is dealing with depression. We're talking depression so bad, like bordering on suicide kind of thing. So, I mean, I could see them doing it. People have been begging for a Silent Hill 2 remake ever since Konami fucked up the Silent Hill collection. But, I mean, if they were going to do that, I would actually see them bringing back PT and like going down that road. I think they would get more money in that regard. I don't know. It's possible that they could go down that road, I guess. I mean, look, Brenton, of the likelihood here, are you behind either a Metal Gear game or a Silent Hill game being announced?
I mean, I've never played a game from either one of those franchises, so I would say, like, I've heard more rumors on the Silent Hill over the Metal Gear Solid, so I'm gonna go
Yeah.
with Silent Hill. I feel that there are I feel that if a remake for the second game were to be announced, or just anything Silent Hill related was to be announced, that there would be way more fans behind that,
Mhm.
ready to play and backing it up than a Metal Gear Solid game.
I honestly, I don't know if I buy either one of them personally, just because of the controversy that kind of surrounds both of them. I'll be honest with you guys, like I have two possible theories as to what it actually could be. There has been talk that they're looking to do remasters of the Suikoden series, because Suikoden is a PlayStation RPG that they basically made um, to counter all of the big RPGs that were coming out in the 90s. So like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Legend of Dragoon, Xenogears, all of that stuff. And it was actually an interesting idea because it was not just that you had like seven typical characters, you had 109 characters, and not all of them were combat based. Basically, in Suikoden, you would create your own outpost and like your own outpost, your own military, everything like that. And so, like a lot of the characters that you could get would be shopkeepers, strategists, generals, things like that. And so they've been talking about either bringing some of those games back or doing a new one in the entry because uh, key developers of the Suikoden franchise have moved over to 505 Games and are now working on a spiritual successor called Ayuden Chronicle. Um, I think that they could totally re-release some Suikoden stuff to counteract Ayuden Chronicle, but I don't think that they're looking to like bring back Suikoden as a franchise, which is kind of sad because it was definitely for those who are Capcom fans that love Breath of Fire, Suikoden is kind of the same prospect, but for Konami. So at that point, it's definitely one of those franchises that I'd love to see come back, but I do not see Konami caring enough about it. And the next one, which I think is going to make more sense to Brinton and Alex, is Castlevania. Because of the success of the Castlevania series on Netflix, I could totally see them doing something Castlevania related. And they did say that it's world loved. So at that point, that tells me like world loved recently. And so at that point, Castlevania is definitely the franchise to go and do it.
Seems plausible, yeah.
But I think Alex would also tell me that as a Castlevania fan, I'm asking for too much.
You might be.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm aware. I hope, but we'll see what happens. Brinton, what do you think about a Castlevania game?
Like, I don't think that would be something that I personally would go run out and purchase. However, I think that, oh my gosh, I said that phrase twice in the same sentence. It's not a game
Can it be any worse than me basically saying that Alex was Elon Musk?
Oh my god. I think that I personally would not go out and buy it. However, it would be a game that would do and sell well.
Yeah, because the reason I was asking that is like, given the popularity of the Netflix series, it's probably more likely that it would be like a Castlevania announcement.
Yeah.
That's kind of my viewpoint on the matter, but we will not know until 2 weeks from now, which hopefully by then I'll be graduated from CDL training so I can actually watch Tokyo Game Show. But I guess I'll find out when we get there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move into the next topic here because I think we've hit the nail on the head. I've always been the Konami fan, minus Romney, and I actually think Romney would probably be on the side of Silent Hill. I think because he was kind of behind that Silent Hill 2 remake. But let's go ahead and get into the next one because little side tangent. Do you want to know one thing I'm getting sick and tired of seeing in the gaming industry, especially on the AAA end? Buyouts.
and those have been like that.
They've been a disturbing trend the last 2-3 years.
I was gonna say the last couple of months.
Well, because the first one happened with Bethesda, and that was 2021. So, yeah, buyouts are getting kind of disturbing in a weird way, because unfortunately there's actually parts of the gaming audience that are cheering these things on, and I'm actually against it because, look, I get some of these companies are failing. I don't think console makers buying them and then basically making them first party or second party studios is going to help. I think it actually might hurt those franchises in the long run, but now it's almost become kind of a thing where Microsoft is looking to gather up North American studios. I mean, there's already talk of Microsoft or Amazon purchasing EA now. They've also been talking about purchasing Ubisoft. And then Sony is already said that they want to purchase Bungie, but they've also been talking to we've actually been able to confirm this. They talked to Konami about getting some of their library. They've talked to Sega about getting some of their library. And now, this is where it gets even more difficult. Sony, along with Chinese company Tencent, are now discussing purchasing. They already had a little bit of shares in there, but now they've basically acquired 30% of the developer From Software. So for those who don't know, From Software is the creator of the Souls type genre. They created Demon Souls and later Dark Souls, and even most recently, they created Elden Ring. And because of the success of Elden Ring, Tencent and Sony have collectively worked together to acquire 30% of the company. Now, they're saying right now they're doing it specifically because they want to encourage From Software's success, but I tend to look at that and go, no, I think what you want, because and by the way, I should point this out, they both have 30% each. So they have, you might say, controlling interest in this company, and it looks like Sony might utilize this along with Tencent to acquire From Software and put them into the fold as well. Which I'm not for, because From Software, even though their recent success with Elden Ring and Dark Souls has been amazing, it means that they would then be Sony exclusive, maybe even come to PC, but that, yeah, what the console wars would eventually become is that, oh, you're a big company, we'll buy you out, and therefore you only make games for us. And that basically takes the third party pool and diminishes it greatly. I also don't think it's a healthy practice, because it basically takes a lot of this, as I said earlier, pseudo indie companies, which are less reputable companies that are trying to earn their reputation right now, or indie companies, and basically says, you have to do this too. And that might not be in their best interests either. Sorry, I cut you off, Alex.
I didn't say anything, but I can. Yeah, you're right. And this is kind of the problem with where the AAA industry is. As we continue to want and expect the most advanced games with the most advanced graphics and most advanced tech, there gets to be a point where that costs a lot of money. And, well, unfortunately, if the studios, these kind of middle line studios, want to survive and make games of that high caliber, of that quality, unfortunately, that probably means getting bought out by a bigger company, and it's absolutely terrible. And this is why I continue to say we need more midline games. This is why gamers should probably be wanting to see some more midline games instead of a huge AAA style blockbuster every single month.
People should probably not be wanting games like Genshin Impact, and probably should be wanting more games like Uncharted.
Well, I'd say Genshin Impact is more of a midline title, as opposed to Uncharted. I'd put more firmly in the AAA tier.
I'd argue that Genshin is not that, because of the sheer scope that they aim for. They basically have labeled themselves as a survival MMO. So at that point, unfortunately, much like Elden Ring, which kind of goes under the same kind of classification, I think they're also, like, granted, Genshin has done it on a cheaper budget, and we should all applaud them for doing so. But
yeah, that's why I would put them as a midline game, especially if they're free to play.
But
Whereas
what
Uncharted
happens
is
when a
more
company
AAA.
what happens when a company like Tencent comes in and says, "Oh, we could totally be making a whole lot more off of this," and we already know that I guess Genshin has a little bit of gotcha, a little bit of it in it.
What I'm sure it does. It's like I said, it's free to play. So
But then Tencent could come in and say, "Nah, you need more gotcha in it,"
yeah,
and that could be a
sucks.
problem.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the issue here, because I should clarify really quick. Tencent is also associated with another company that we've talked about quite a bit in the last few months, NetEase. NetEase worked with Blizzard to create Diablo Immortal, as well as the previous game that the base engine for Diablo Immortal was based off of, which, by the way, was a predatory game with microtransactions. And oh, wait, did we cover this with Diablo Immortal? Yeah, we did. Predatory microtransactions. Oh, and I should also point out, NetEase, Tencent, also while doing this, acquired Quantic Dream. So for those who don't know Quantic Dream, that's the company that made Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and most recently, Detroit Become Human. That is owned by Tencent now. So I can guarantee you those games are probably going to get predatory, which I don't know how the founder of Quantic Dream is going to feel about that, but I'm guaranteeing you that's what Tencent's going to require to be able to make that work. Brenton, your thoughts on all the stuff that's being mentioned here? The fact that, companies are basically looking to acquire smaller companies, and ultimately it's just going to become Sony versus Microsoft and all of their various first-party developers.
I mean, that's what it's already starting to become, if we think about it here for a moment. I think the excitement of starting a new gaming studio and being able to make games on your own terms is going to start to dwindle out, because that's why these independent companies even start out and come to fruition in the first place, is because they were unhappy with the first party standards, the crunch, as we've mentioned earlier, and wanting to make a quality game on their terms, not on the terms of the bigger studio that's more or less funding the projects. That's where we see a lot of the Blizzard veterans going and making their own studios, because it's like, we're not getting, like, we can't make the games that we're not making the games that we used to. The quality is gone.
And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of your favorite indie studios are started from game devs who have at least 10 years experience in the gaming industry, absolutely hated the experience, and then just decided to make games on their own term. Like the perfect example that I can think of is the guy who made Axiom Verge. Because he was like a veteran of the gaming industry and just decided, I'm going to strike out on my own. And in turn created success. But what basically this says to him is that in order for him to maintain that success, yeah, he could stay indie and probably not get as much money, but now it'd probably be more in his best interest to work out a specific deal with either Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, whatever, and only put Axiom Verge out there for like a couple of years, which means he would be subject to whatever requirements that those companies would have of him to be able to make the games that he wants to make. And therefore removes a lot of that creative power from him.
And I mean, honestly, at the start of all this, I'll be honest, I was a little bit excited, like, oh, so-and-so is going to be under Sony, and now this company, and now this company. Oh, that's fantastic. They're going to make such great games, because, I mean, and both of you can disagree with me, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me. However, my opinion is that Sony just makes better first-party games than Microsoft. Like, they're like... Well, I'm glad you think so, because I know I'm not. And
for all the people who want to yell at me for this, I've got one game franchise that I like that is Xbox exclusive, and that is Gears of War. Now, I'm not saying that Halo's shit. I don't even know. Like, at some point, I'll try the Master Chief Collection and see if I feel like that. But I wasn't a Bethesda fan, and the Bethesda acquisition didn't really do anything for me. Blizzard was in the toilet, and so their acquisition by Microsoft didn't really do anything for them.
I agree, and I mean that's a whole nother like can of worms there for sure.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is initially I was excited, super stoked. Oh my gosh, there's going to be even more great games and IPs under the PlayStation library. And then all of a sudden it became, well, Microsoft is buying this. Well, Sony's going to buy this. Well, Microsoft is not going to buy this. And I'm like, okay, this is just becoming like whose dick is bigger, and I don't care.
That is exactly what it is. Thank you, Brenton.
Like
it is ginormously a corporate whose dick is bigger contest.
So I just kind of sit here and I'm just like, I just want to play games.
Yeah.
I want like because if I'm not like because if for heaven forbid it's the game developers that destroy my love of gaming, then I'm just gonna go back and spend money on books to go escape from reality.
Pretty much.
Like I'm a freaking state counselor. Like I need to escape from reality quite often.
Well, and not only that, like the other thing I'm really worried about, and maybe this is just me being paranoid, but look at all of the acquisitions that have happened thus far. Sony acquiring Bungie is not a good example, but Microsoft acquiring Bethesda, Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. Microsoft is in talks of acquiring EA, in talks of acquiring Ubisoft, all of which North American companies. Sony is looking to acquire From Software, which would be a Japanese company. They've made bids on other companies that are they're not North American, but they're, because like Quantic Dream is European. I believe at this point Bungie is also, they might be Canadian, but I think they actually became European. Like their main office was based out in Europe. So basically what it sounds to me like is going to happen is that Microsoft becomes the North American developer company and Sony becomes everywhere else. And I can only imagine how shitty the console war is going to get at that point, because you're going to have idiotic people who play Call of Duty basically saying, "Oh, you don't support America because you don't play the Microsoft console. Oh, America, we play nothing but Call of Duty here." And sorry, but like Japan has cornered the market as far as I'm concerned. A majority of the games that I play are Japanese franchises, primarily because they're what I grew up with, and also they're the ones creating the stories that I give a fuck about, kind of thing. And I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see factioning off, because frankly, in my honest opinion, factioning off, becoming tribes and all that happens way too much in regular real life. I don't need it in the gaming industry as well. I don't need it in any industry. I just want it gone. Like, let's celebrate people making games. Let's not worry about who's acquired who. Let's just let people make games. And now, granted, I should also point out in the article that we have, From is basically saying that they will still maintain their autonomy with that, and they'll continue to make games, and all this is like they're just that invested in our company. But I could easily see big domineering Sony, because we're already seeing it in how they're acquiring the anime industry in a way. I could totally see them coming in and basically saying, "Yeah, you know what? We own 60% of you. You make what we want," kind of thing. And at that point, it's no longer a creative endeavor; it's a corporate endeavor. And I've already lived through corporate endeavors failing in the gaming industry, and I can't deal with it at all. Alex, I'm going to give you the final thoughts on this one. Are me and Brinton hitting the nail on the head, or do you think we're missing the point?
I think you're both exactly right, and I don't think there's much more I can add. It's just that's the sad state of the industry right now. Is everybody's going to be buying everybody?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not a big fan of Genshin. Like, I've seen pieces of Genshin, and it looks okay, but it's mobile, so a lot of the time I probably wouldn't look into it. But I definitely would not want big Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo coming in and saying, "We want you to make this game this way." I want them to be able to do what they're doing, because I think Genshin's had a great idea and been able to capitalize on the Breath of the Wild concept, the survival MMO kind of concept, and be able to make it their own. Same thing with other indie survival MMO Valheim. They've been able to do that and be able to make it work. I do not want, and primarily they've been able to make it work on their terms under their vision, and their vision is what people signed on for, not whatever corporate oversight vision comes in play. And that's ultimately what's happening right now, and I wish it stopped, because ultimately, like just like it is in the movie industry, a lot of this stuff is, yeah, it's being funded by corporate interests, but it is a creative endeavor, and you have to keep that corporate interest in mind. And right now in the gaming industry, it's all going towards no. We need to have these huge exorbitant budgets so that we can make it all back in microtransactions. It's just not gonna work. So that being said, let's get into the discussion that we have tonight. I actually got a lot of questions over the last 2 months, primarily, I think, because of all of the big release dates that got announced at Gamescom, at E3, and all that. A lot of people asking for tips on being a fan of a franchise, or a fan of anime, or a fan of films, and being able to be thrifty about it. And somehow, for some reason, we are authoritative sources on this matter. That's because that's all we do. We talk nothing but finances of the gaming industry. I think somebody
no idea how to really approach this topic, I'm gonna say right now.
I think somebody missed a memo somewhere, honestly. But I mean, we all have budgets. We're adults. We have to live our lives. So this is why I actually asked the panel to at least come up with a minimum or a maximum of 3 suggestions that maybe they do in their own lives to be able to be a thrifty geek, to be able to keep money in your pocket, as well as being able to buy your favorite shit. So without further, this is also going to be kind of in the same format as our unpopular opinions, where we're just going to go through. And I guess we'll just go around the table. I'll start with mine, which is, and unfortunately, this is where Daddy Drac has to step in, because I have to deal with this regularly. I got kids that I gotta afford school. I gotta afford whatever extracurricular activities that they have or whatnot. And I think the first thing that you have to do is your mindset has to match what you're trying to do. And that is that you have to treat whatever you're trying to get stuff for exactly what it is. And I'm going to insult people, so I propose that everybody cover their ears if this is going to be offensive, but I'm a gamer. My consoles are nothing but toys in my own life. They are very expensive, very luxurious toys, but they are toys nonetheless. And so what I mean by that is, in terms of finance, where are toys in your list of priorities? They can't be anywhere but close to the bottom. All right. So, like, what I mean by that is, in terms of financial priority, Alex, what matters more to you? Being able to buy the next DVD box set, or being able to buy gas for your car?
Oh, definitely the gas for my car, because that's how I get to work.
And so that's kind of like my first suggestion here is you have to prioritize it where it realistically goes. And I know I see a lot of anime fans in particular doing this, but gamers do it as well, where they prioritize it higher because it is just such a big thing for them, and it provides so much relaxation, and it's their passion, it's their drive, and therefore it has way more priority on your financial list than it should. And because you prioritize it that way, you forget to pay bills. And that's what you're trying not to avoid, because if you don't pay the bills, then you have other problems that will basically not make you able to be able to buy your games, be able to buy your anime. And so that has to be considered. So that's my first suggestion. Treat it as the priority that it is. It's a toy. It's a luxury. It's not high on there. Brinton, what would be your first suggestion for being a more thrifty geek?
This is probably something that people are going to give me slack on as well. However, I sell used games to GameStop that I don't play anymore. And I pay for the pro membership because it gives me an additional 20% on top at the very end. So yeah, are the trade-in values of some of the games kind of crappy? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
and then I get a 20% increase after everything has been scanned. There's one time that I went, like, the biggest haul that I ever got was $800 from GameStop, just from selling stuff that I didn't need. And that lasted me 2 years of buying video games and other products and accessories that I really did want. And it did not come out of my hard earned cash. So I was able to continue paying my bills, paying for gas, living, well, as comfortably as I can in 2022, food, and all that other stuff. Um, Even just recently, I was like, well, I want to get The Last of Us Part 1 and I want to get Pokemon Violet. So I went through all the games that I have, and I decided, okay, what am I going to play again and what do I really not want? And I went and I got like $150 for like 7 games that I brought in.
So let me clarify something with you really quick on this. So
Yeah.
you're talking a lot about games like you really don't want versus games you really do want. So what you're basically saying is because I already could feel the people going, betrayal! How dare you call yourself a gamer? You just sell everything off the GameStop. Um, I'm pretty sure, like when it comes to franchises like Zelda, Pokemon, those have earned those have earned the spot on your game shelf. What would you consider to be games that you would put into this consideration to turn into GameStop?
Things that I was excited for and failed me miserably. Um, Kana and the Bridge of Spirits was super excited to play that game, and I'm sorry if that was your favorite game of 2021 or 2020 whenever it came out. I'm super happy for you. That game fell flat for me.
Okay.
And like I never finished it. I never had a desire to finish it, and I decided, why should I keep this when I can get money for it
Yeah.
and buy The Last of Us Part 1?
Like why let it clutter up your game shelf if you look at the box and you already just like the first thing that comes to your mind is like the disappointment of playing it
Exactly.
kind of thing.
I still have my Breath of the Wild copy from 2017. That's never going to go away. I still have my copy of Pokemon Shield. That's never going to go away.
But basically
Oh my,
anything that was an experiment that you didn't know if you were going to like or not and ultimately fell flat, that's the stuff you take back.
I think another good example, like I've talked about this on multiple other like shows, Xenoblade 2. Bought it, played it, didn't like it, didn't stop, you adorable husky.
Okay.
Sorry. Bought it,
You're
played
good. You
it,
just
didn't.
threw me off.
No, you're good. Bought it, played it, didn't like it, didn't have any intentions of replaying it, so I got rid of it.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is like in terms of market value for you, Xenoblade 2 was a great one-time playthrough, but that's where its value ended. Kind of
Yeah, because then I was able to buy Pokemon Violet.
thing. Okay. This is a good thing to bring up because there are a lot of fans that I've even come across people who do like YouTube gaming and really want to make it work, and it's kind of a struggle for them, and they keep everything because they just like even though they hate it, they're like, well, maybe it'll become popular 10 years down the road, and I'll be able to make it work. And in my opinion, I think you kind of have it the right way. Is like, okay, but if you don't enjoy it and you look at the if you look at the box and go, I'm never playing this, then is it a worthwhile purchase? Is it worth keeping in your house? You might as well get whatever return you can on the investment you put into it and didn't get back, kind of thing. So like that's where that financial value kind of lies in it. Like for example, I don't necessarily do this with GameStop, but I have sold games that I have previously reviewed on Amazon via third party, and simply because I may not have enjoyed them, but maybe somebody else can find that value, kind of thing.
And just to drive the point home, when I had gotten home from my mission, 10 years ago. It was the same year that Animal Crossing New Leaf was coming out. I didn't have a 3DS. I had no money to my name. No, wait, that came out in 2013. So a year after I had been home. No, no money to my name, no 3DS, no way to purchase the game. So I looked into it with GameStop because I was like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff here I'm never going to touch again. So I called them up,
Yeah.
asked a couple of questions, went in, treated like really good customer service. Not only did they hook me up, but they were also doing their promotion of, oh, if you're trading all this in towards Animal Crossing, then you get an additional 25% in credit. Oh, you don't have a pro membership? Well, you can get an additional 20% on top of that 25%. Not only did I walk in there with no expectations, I walked out with a 3DS, paid for with credit, and a brand new video game paid for with credit.
Yeah.
And I was the happiest person on the face of the planet.
Okay. No. See, there's value in that. Like, you basically have taken your relationship with GameStop and you've made it a worthwhile part of your life. This is stuff that I used to do with GameStop. Unfortunately, my customer service relationship with GameStop over the last few years has been very different from yours. But
Yes.
where the difference is there is like I found value instead going to Amazon and being able to do that. And so I basically utilize Amazon the same way you utilize GameStop, and that can be a financial resource because you can gain a little bit of perks there that can help put at least a little bit of cash back in your wallet for, games that just don't work out, kind of thing.
Exactly. So y'all can call me a trader. Y'all can call me, oh, you're not a true gamer. I don't care.
What's a true gamer at this point?
No, exactly.
I hate to take this from you, Alex. I know that we make you out to be the hipster of the podcast, but I was a gamer before fucking gaming was fucking cool. So I guess I'm the true hipster of the podcast.
I guess so. You can be the gaming hipster. I'll still be the anime hipster.
Yeah, there you go. We'll just have different classifications of hipster. All right, Alex, what would be your first suggestion here?
Just take an evaluation of, like, say you suddenly find yourself, maybe you are a little short on money, then that's probably the good time to just kind of take an evaluation of everything you have right now. Like look at all your streaming services. Say you're subscribed to multiple streaming services, right? Now, like, go through them and say, okay, which do I frequent? Which do I watch a lot of? What has the shows I really want? Even if you're not necessarily watching them every single day, right? Like, hey, if I had to say, I don't know, if I had to say, unfortunately, cut out an anime streaming service right now for me, I might have to sadly cut out High Dive because I think I get a little more out of Crunchyroll, even though High Dive's had a lot of great shows lately, so it would suck to lose High Dive, but it might just be worth it for the time being if
but would you also say
find myself
it's not
strapped.
the end of the world? Like, you could get High Dive back if things get better.
Yeah, so just do things like that. It's like the old sense budgeting tricks. And I guess if there's still that killer app show you just want to watch, then sign up again for a month, then cancel when you're done.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree with this
like
wholeheartedly. That. In fact, I got a little bit of crap from friends because right before we went on our St. George vacation, I think I told Brenton about this. I renewed a bunch of streaming services that I had since turned off. And the main reason I did that was because I knew we were going to want to watch a bunch of movies when we were out there. And here's the reality of it. Like, there's going to be a bunch of Geek News movie nights that are coming out, along with the one that I still need to put the poll out for. But we watched a lot of shit out there, and there's a lot of opinions to be had. We didn't get anywhere close to everything that we wanted to watch, and even then, we even had some hurdles that we couldn't get past for them. So, like, I got a lot of crap. Just like, why on earth would you do that? That's such a waste of money. I planned that in advance to be able to go do that, primarily because I also wanted to take a look at the streaming platforms and see if they'd learned from any of the mistakes that they'd had. Spoiler alert, Paramount Plus hasn't learned shit. And primarily, the only reason I say that is because they still have so many properties that they could put up on their platform, and they refuse to do so. I was telling Alex this, like, there's so many, like, old school TV shows that I watched on Nick at Night that I would totally have a Paramount Plus subscription to go watch them, and Paramount Plus doesn't have them. Thankfully, Hulu has a few of them, but Paramount Plus doesn't. So it's just like, okay, well, and here's the long-lasting result of that. I only kept them for a month. I've since already canceled them to move back into that regular schedule, but it was a vacation. I knew we wanted to watch a bunch of movies and a bunch of TV series. So I opened them back up again and let the floodgates flow, at least for that week and a half kind of thing. So I totally get it. And I think you've actually kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, you do actually have to prioritize how much time are you spending on these platforms. Because if you're spending more time on YouTube than you are on Netflix, YouTube you may not be paying for. Netflix you are. And that might be a priority you have to get rid of, kind of thing. Or finish up with what you're watching on Netflix so you can get rid of it. Sorry, I cut you off, but yeah, that's a
Nope,
great idea.
That's perfect. Yeah, that would be my big suggestion. It's just, make your priority, see what you can cut, and see what you want to keep.
Another one I would bring up, because I think it bears repeating, because Brenton said it a couple of times on the podcast, and I think it's a good idea that in this case needs to be repeated. When it comes to games, this is kind of two-pronged. When it comes to games that you want to have, that have been announced, that are coming out, that you are excited for. So, for example, Xenoblade 3 for me was an amazing announcement, and something that I could totally get stoked for. You need to look at those announcements and actually say, like, how excited are you actually for them? And then prioritize, like, and by what I mean basically is, do you want them badly enough that you are willing to put down your money immediately or over time to be able to get them, or can you wait? Because who knows, maybe you'll be able to get them for cheaper. And the example that I give here is, people might know, I am a big fan of World of Warcraft. I have played since 2007, and I have been a happy WoW player despite even some of its worst situations in recent years. WoW has an expansion coming out, and it's rumored to be this November. I have since made a financial decision that I am not going to go back to WoW, or at least even consider going back to WoW, until the following year. Primarily because WoW Dragonflight has not done enough. Like, I follow all that stuff. I followed the alpha, and now the beta is opening up this weekend. I followed all that to see if any of the new features for Dragonflight were going to get me excited and actually make me not think about all of the different betrayals and issues that Shadowlands had. And the reality is, it didn't. And so at that point, I basically said, okay, well, I will wait until January of next year, see where I'm at financially, to see whether or not it's worthwhile for me to go out and try it out. If not, then I'll see what happens come February, or maybe push it all the way out to June and see whether or not it's going to be a worthwhile thing for me to come back to. So you have to prioritize whether or not you even want to put the money there. And also whether or not you want to do things like pre-orders, because pre-orders can come with their own pros and cons. In particular, one of the things I think that is a great financial decision that I think more people ought to implement is something Brenton has mentioned, which is that you basically made a decision, Brenton, this year where you had a bunch of games that you really, really wanted, but you were only going to get one that was in a collector's edition or a higher edition.
Yep. I typically limit myself to one collector's edition per year. So if that means, so like a good example is this year I got Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah.
And and there's another one that has caught my interest. It is God of War Ragnarok. However, I have already got my collector's edition for the year. I decided to make that conscious decision to get it early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And because I did that, sucks for me. God of War Ragnarok is coming out in November. I won't get to reap the benefits of collecting that one because I chose to grab one earlier in the year.
But one of the cool things that you might have to look, or that you might get to look forward to, is whatever collector's edition feature that's being offered as only in the collector's edition now, it might come back 6 months later as like a minor paid DLC that you can get later. A lot of people don't know that they do this, but a lot of those companies do it, which to me is kind of skeezy. But ultimately, because they trick people into thinking like this is going to be a one-time thing. It very rarely is. So like, for the perfect example here, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Jill Valentine and Shuma Gorath are only going to be pre-order DLC. They will never be accessible ever, 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 ever again. Oh, wait. They're already available in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And, by the way, 2 months later, they were made available to be able to be purchased on the PSN for, I think it was like $3 each.
Yeah, I just don't believe stuff like that anymore.
Yeah,
like
but
unless
so many people do.
Like
it's irritating.
There are certain studios that make it very clear, like, hey, we really are going to make this super exclusive to this. Like, I promise you, you will never see this again. And they stick true to their guns on that. And it's like, okay, well, I missed out, and people are scalping the product I want, and I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's just one of those financial decisions that you have to make. But kind of getting back on a point, like, that's actually, in my opinion, that's what a lot of gamers should do. Like, it is such an encouragement from gaming companies these days, just like, go and buy our $250 collector's edition that will come with a bunch of stuff that will clutter your house that you'll never touch ever again. Like, how many times have I seen people go, oh, I can get the game soundtrack. You are going to be able to get that on Amazon or on iTunes a week later. And, like, in some cases where you don't have the space to be able to have that extra physical media, maybe it's just better for you to have the iTunes because you're going to listen to it on your iPhone anyway.
Exactly. And then another thing that I need to remember, and I know this is something that I've been saying for years now, like, games are $60, $70. I'm not paying $200 to $300 collector's editions knowing that I'm about to get a piece of crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Installed
You
into
absolutely
my
have
console.
to love it. This is why, like, over the last couple of months, I brought it up to both of you. Like, I'm not big on buying collector's editions. Talk me off the ledge. I really want to buy the collector's edition for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Alex and Brinton. Talk me off the bridge. Talk me down off the ledge. And both of you just kind of looked at me and went, well, but this is worth it to you. And you love the Xeno series. So this is actually probably, as Alex kind of pointed it out, this is kind of up your alley. And I hadn't really paid for a collector's edition in years, so I could get away with it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there was no, like, we weren't going to talk you off that ledge.
Yeah.
I think I really want to get the Bayonetta 3 collector's edition, but again, I've already bought my collector's edition for the year, so sucks to be me.
Yeah. It sucks, but who knows? Maybe you'll, like, a lot of the features that are going to be put into it, like I said, might get added later, and then you can just get them later, and it's totally fine, kind of thing. So yeah, that's fine.
And I'm pretty sure somebody out there is just like, well, why can't you just treat yourself? And it's like, no, I have to be diligent and I have to be disciplined on this. If I decide that this year I'm going to break my rule and get 2 collector's editions, then I have to carry that on into the next year.
At that point, I would more applaud you for the self-discipline that you're showing with that.
And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this is easy. No, this is really hard for me, because I can't tell you how badly I've tried to convince myself to be like, no, just do it. And it's like, no.
Like, how many
You
times have
know
you said in
better.
your head, like, oh yeah, I could totally just treat myself. I could do like a little cheat day for $60. There's a reason that works in a diet for $5 of yogurt, and it doesn't work for a gamer's budget.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Especially when I have two children. I just finished paying off like legal fees from all of last year. I'm starting to get to a more financially stable place in my life. Like I just can't do that to myself.
exactly. But that was my suggestion. So, Brenton, take it away with your next one.
Oh, I don't really have any further
Okay.
suggestions besides the one that you've already like stated.
Yeah. Alex, do you have any?
Nothing more from me.
Okay. Then I'm gonna bring up another one. This one came up, and this might seem like the dumbest thing ever, but I did this and it worked for me. And guys, I'm a hardcore gamer. Like Alex kind of knows how many game purchases that I make throughout the year, and I'm still very stringent in that regard. But one of the things I've done, I don't really do it anymore because budget doesn't really have a demand to be able to do it, but your budget might be right in that point. So I'm going to bring it up. When I was a kid and I was working at a movie theater and not earning a whole lot of money, and I also kind of did this when I was doing inventory too. One of the other things that I would do is basically like I kind of took advantage of the pre-order system in a weird way compared to other people. And I got the idea actually from buying my first car, which was basically I had to acquire a car loan. You know, like I know a lot of financial advisors go like, don't go out and get initial debt, but there are kind of some essentials that do need to have to happen, especially for kids, because young kids who don't really know how the financial world works need a little bit of that safety net kind of transaction. And I would actually dare say like a car loan is a great way to be able to do it. Because it teaches you like what you need to be able to get that kind of thing, and then on top of that, it teaches you the payment system. And in particular, what it did for me is, oh, now I have this payment that I have to make once a month. So I have to make sure that I'm putting a paycheck towards that kind of thing. And keep in mind, guys, this is my early 20s. I'm not paying bills. I'm not doing really anything else aside from this one transaction. I then looked at how many games that I was purchasing that year, and the fact that, GameStop, I believe, and Brenton, correct me if I'm wrong, they still run off of the you have to at least bare minimum pay $5 towards it, right? To pre-order.
Correct.
Yeah.
And depending on like the amount of the item, like most collector's editions, you have to put down $25.
And consoles,
Otherwise,
you
it's
had to put
just
down 50 for console
yeah.
for a while.
But for any game, regardless of how much it is just $5.
So basically, what I did out of it, and some people might find this silly, but for me it worked, is I basically treated pre-orders of games like mini loans. And so at that point I said, okay, well, I know this game is coming out December 28th and it's January, and I want to make sure that I have it, and I want to make sure that I can also like enjoy it when it comes out. So at that point, like I'm in a good financial spot so that I can go and buy a Slurpee, and I can go and buy Doritos or whatever especially if it's a Final Fantasy game, man, because I would deck out with a lot of those where we would go and get pizza and just go crazy because Final Fantasy games don't come out that often. And so I literally said, okay, how can I do this where I can pay this game off by like a month before it comes out? And then at that point, I can just build up my own finances to be able to go and do said snacks and reserving that said weekend so that I could go and play it. And so I would treat these games like mini loans where I would make small payments. And my GameStop employees hated me for this, by the way. Like this is why I was buddies with the district manager, is because I did it, because he actually liked the idea. He thought it was actually a really great way to be able to help me manage my finances so early in life. But I basically would just do these little payments of $5, $10, or even $20. If it was coming out like in 3 months or whatever. and I would make sure that it was paid off a month before the game came out, so that then I could go and enjoy it and not have to worry about financial worries. And so that would be I don't even know if GameStop would even let you do this anymore. I'm being honest. But maybe treating it just like that also helps. I know that in particular, just from all the anime channels that I've befriended over the years, those figures, god damn, man, those things are expensive as fuck.
They are.
And so at that, and in a lot of cases, I actually kind of look at some anime creators going, I get that you love this, but I get that you love this, but you have to have like 50 of them in your apartment and they're all $500 or whatever. And it blows my mind. But here's the thing. I know that some of them have also done this practice too, where they set like for me, I couldn't set aside money because I would know where it was. So I would pay off the loan, so to speak. But for them, they could go set that money aside. And that way, when they could afford it, it wasn't going to break the bank to do it, kind of thing. And that's the whole premise of this. You find a way for your enjoyment, your toy, to not break your bank. If it's through little payments, if it's through setting aside money, however you do it. And that would be another way that I would say, like, that's how you can be a thrifty gamer. Is because you can take these little things here and there, make it worthwhile. And when I say like take that little amount, I mean you're sacrificing stuff. Like I'm setting aside an additional $5 for my copy of Xenosaga. I mean, how many things on a regular day can $5 buy? Cup of coffee, your lunch, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go without that. When that happened. Like that's a day where you go and do the shitty thing and go buy yourself the dime store ramen and you take that to work instead. Kind of thing. Like now that I've brought it up to you guys, I'm honestly wanting to ask, silly idea?
No.
Would you have done this if you were in your 20s?
I don't think so.
Probably. Well, but yeah, one thing, like you and I handle finances, I think a little bit differently in our, like what I've learned in our conversations. But I mean, it worked for me and it actually helped me manage my finances better. So ultimately it worked out, but
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Brinton, what did you think of that?
But it sounds like something that I would have done. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a sensible way to be able to learn how to, at least in basics, how to handle a budget. And be able to properly apply that. So I thought I'd at least bring it out and give the idea to people who maybe it'll help out. Maybe it'll help you get your next big anime figure. Or I know that IGN just worked out the deal. So like the collector's edition statue of Aloy that you have from Forbidden West, I guess they worked it out to get a similar statue. Maybe people are trying to afford that, and this helps you be able to do it. And so at that point, there you go. I think we've actually given some worthwhile tips on being a much more thrifty geek, which considering that it could have been we could have had way more complicated suggestions, because I know people who have created the scrimpiest of budgets to be able to live. Like they literally have lived on $20 for a week. Or $15 for a week, and it made it work for them. It didn't work for me, but there you go. And that brings us to the end of the podcast. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this wrap up of the month of August. Hopefully September will not have any major issues, because I know that we're going to be walking into the Twitter lawsuit in October. But if people want to be able to reach out to us and be able to see the content that we create, or sharing the opinions that we've displayed here, or hell, you liked what Brinton said about some of the ideas that he had for being a thrifty geek, and you want to ask for more advice from him, Brinton, how do they do that for you? Besides my answering service.
You can reach out to me at Twitter, Chitore30, Ciatore 30.
Okay, really quick. I've been asked, is it Chitore? That's how you say it?
That is how I say it.
Okay. because people have been asking me that, and I'm just like, because for some reason I always think there's an O before the T, so I'm like ciautore. I'm like, nah, that doesn't sound right.
Nope, that it's Italian, so
There you go.
I am pretty confident I know how to pronounce it.
No, you definitely do. I'm good in some languages. I am not in others. This comes from learning Elvish from the Lord of the Rings at an early age, and then never investing in any other language, which is funny because I got told I didn't have an aptitude for Spanish or German, and then Spanish, German, and French, and then I could recite Elvish to them. So yeah, that was a weird one, but there you go. Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do people reach out to you?
Find me here on YouTube. Shadow Blizzard 3000 is my channel. I focus on anime content.
All right. And do you have any upcoming projects that people can be excited for? Or
Yeah, I do. I had to start over because I kind of lost it with the hard drive crash. But thankfully, it's like I have most of the assets. I just need to.
What's really frustrating is somebody will actually literally say this like first world problems, and it's like fuck you. This is creator problems.
But yeah, just stay tuned for my channel, and I've got projects coming.
All right. You guys can obviously pay attention to my YouTube channel and all the stuff that comes out there. I know that it looks like I'm 90% streaming content, but the RSS feed stuff does actually come out to YouTube. And again, I'm going to re-emphasize this. I am working on YouTube or other video sharing platform specific content. Specifically, Geek News Game Night is going to be happening that way. And I'm getting ready to actually start editing down that first episode to be able to show you guys that. So that's going to be happening. I'm also looking for some other short form video essay content that I can do for you guys as well, just to kind of give other opinions on various topics of geekdom. Because, I have opinions. I like sharing them, whether they be political or not. Sometimes I'm just being a dad and going, why the hell is twerking still a thing? I really wish twerking would go away. I really do. But maybe that's just the old man in me. But if you guys want to support this podcast, the best thing to do is support its RSS feed, which is geekynro.libsyn.com, where you can see everything. This podcast, as well as Geek News Anime Night, Geek News Marathon Night, Geek News Movie Night, which is going to be getting a huge kind of renovation over the next month or two, as we've listened to you guys. We're going to be doing a lot more movies. And in fact, one of the things that we did in preparation for this was on vacation, and Brinton gave us crap for this, but we took work with us, and work was basically watching a bunch of movies. So yes, we took work with us, but we enjoyed every minute of it, right, Alex?
Absolutely, because we watched a lot of good stuff.
We watched a lot of good stuff, and in particular, some of that stuff was for me the first time. And I get a lot of crap about this, is that I'm a child of the 80s, but you haven't seen insert franchise here. So you guys can look forward to a lot of that stuff. There's lots to look forward to in the future as well, because we're coming up on the holidays, so we'll probably have additional holiday content, all that stuff. But that's all on the RSS feed, and that's the first place to go and get it. You can also follow the RSS feed as well as myself on Twitter at GeekyNRO. Yes, it's back. Twitter didn't ban it, so at that point, yes, I'm conveying thoughts on there, but I'm primarily reserving it for stuff to advertise for the RSS feed, or stuff that should be on the RSS feed but doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. For example, Draken Shadow Live is being advertised there as well, so you guys can check that out. And actually, speaking of that, check us out tomorrow or check us out Saturday, as we will be playing more Dot Hack GU Volume 3 Redemption, as well as Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We really need to finish that game, Alex. We really need to finish that. I'm getting worried that Breath of the Wild 2 will come out and we will still not be done with it.
I bet you we'll be done before then.
I hope so, because Breath of the Wild 2, like as soon as that comes out, you guys are Zelda fans now. There's no excuse. We gotta sink our teeth into that.
Totally.
So at that point, so that's pretty much all the places where you can reach out to us. There will be more additionally. They just aren't finalized just yet, and I look forward to being able to announce them, but until then I have to keep quiet on it. And that'll go ahead and do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this crazy month of August. Hopefully it was better for you guys, that you guys didn't get sick. That's what I personally like to hope for. And thanks so much to Brinton and Alex for joining me and wrapping this month up. Hopefully September goes just as smoothly. And we will be back in time in the month of September for more geek news, reviews, and opinions. So for myself, for Alex, and for Brinton, we will see you guys next time.